Imagine a single, fateful decision made thousands of miles away in a sterile, air-conditioned room. On a screen, a grainy image of a high-value target. The order is given. A Reaper drone, silent and unseen in the night sky, unleashes a Hellfire missile. But this is where our story begins, not ends. Because the intelligence was wrong. The missile doesn't just eliminate a supposed terrorist leader. It strikes a wedding convoy, a tragic miscalculation that sends shockwaves across the globe. This isn't just a news headline. This is the inciting incident of a geopolitical powder keg. The nation struck, a regional power with a history of tension with the West, is outraged. Images of the aftermath flood social media, fueling public fury. Their government, facing immense pressure, issues an ultimatum: admit fault, hand over the drone operators for trial, or face severe consequences. On the other side, the superpower that launched the strike is caught in a political vice. Admitting fault would be a colossal international embarrassment and could set a dangerous precedent. Refusing to do so risks an all-out conflict they can't afford. The president is briefed in the Situation Room. The options are grim: diplomatic stonewalling, economic sanctions, or military posturing. Each move is a gamble on a global chessboard where a single misstep could lead to checkmate. As the world holds its breath, the rhetoric escalates, navies are put on high alert. Fighter jets patrol contested airspace. The stock markets plummet as investors panic. News anchors on 24-hour channels speculate wildly about the brink of a new world war. The UN Security Council convenes an emergency session, but it devolves into a theater of accusations and vetoes. Publicly, both sides are digging in, their leaders making fiery speeches, appealing to national pride and painting the other as the aggressor. It seems like the gears of war are grinding into motion, and no one has the power to stop them. But behind the curtain of public posturing and military maneuvering, a different kind of battle is being fought. This is Act 2, the Shadow War. In the labyrinthine corridors of power, a handful of individuals know that the public narrative is a dangerous fiction. A veteran diplomat pulled out of retirement receives a discreet, encrypted message. It's from a counterpart she hasn't spoken to in years, a seasoned negotiator from the other side. The message is simple: we need to talk, off the record. This is the start of the back channel, a secret line of communication, completely hidden from the media, from the public, and even from most of their own governments. Their meetings aren't in grand halls, but in quiet, neutral locations: a forgotten library in Geneva, a private suite in a Vienna hotel, a secluded tea house in Istanbul. They are ghosts, their travel logs wiped, their presence deniable. Initial conversations are tense, filled with mistrust. Each side tests the other, probing for weakness, gauging sincerity. The diplomat, let's call her Eleanor, has to navigate the fury and grief of her counterpart, Amir, who personally knew families affected by the strike. Amir, in turn, has to contend with the rigid, face-saving doctrine of Eleanor's government. They aren't just negotiating, they're performing a delicate psychological dance. Slowly, painstakingly, they begin to build a sliver of trust. They talk not as representatives of nations, but as two people who understand the catastrophic human cost of failure. They share stories of their families, their hopes, their fears. They find common ground in their shared desire to pull the world back from the abyss, but the clock is ticking. While they talk in secret, military hardliners on both sides are pushing for action. A near miss between two fighter jets in the Persian Gulf almost ignites the conflict. A cyber attack cripples a major financial institution, and fingers are pointed immediately, nearly collapsing the secret talks. Eleanor and Amir have to constantly manage their own sides, feeding just enough information to their leaders to keep the dogs of war at bay without revealing the full extent of their negotiations. They realize that a public apology is impossible. A trial for the drone operators is a non-starter. They need a third way, a solution that allows both leaders to declare victory to their people. The breakthrough comes during a late-night session fueled by coffee and exhaustion. It's not about blame, but about a shared future. The idea is to reframe the entire crisis. This brings us to Act 3, the resolution. The plan they devise is complex and brilliant in its subtlety. It involves multiple, seemingly unrelated steps that, when combined, create a path to de-escalation. First, a third-party nation, a neutral player respected by both sides, will release an independent investigation. This report will conclude that the strike was based on tragically flawed intelligence provided by a rogue faction within a regional intelligence agency, a faction with its own agenda to destabilize the region. This creates a common enemy, a scapegoat that isn't either of the two superpowers. It turns the narrative from a direct conflict into a shared problem of combating disinformation and rogue elements. Second, the superpower that launched the strike will not apologize, but will announce a massive humanitarian and infrastructure aid package to the affected region. It's framed not as compensation, but as a goodwill partnership. To promote regional stability and counter the very extremism that the rogue intelligence sought to provoke. It's a quiet de facto reparation that allows the other nation to show its people tangible benefits. Third, both leaders will participate in a joint televised summit focused on a new framework for counterterrorism intelligence sharing. This public display of cooperation signals to the world that the crisis is over. They will stand side by side, speaking of a new era of collaboration, effectively selling the back-channel solution as their own proactive statesman-like initiative. Getting their leaders to agree is the final nail-biting hurdle. Eleanor and Amir have to use every ounce of their political capital and persuasive skill. They present the plan not as a compromise, but as a strategic victory that avoids a disastrous war and positions each leader as a strong, wise commander-in-chief. After tense, closed-door deliberations, both presidents give their reluctant approval. In the final scenes, we see the plan unfold like clockwork. The independent report is released. The aid package is announced. Summit takes place with forced smiles and firm handshakes for the cameras. The world breathes a collective sigh of relief. The stock markets rebound. The navies stand down. The crisis is averted. The news cycle moves on. No one ever knows about Eleanor and Amir. There are no medals, no public recognition. Their victory lies in the silence, in the war that didn't happen, in the millions of lives that continue, blissfully unaware of how close they came to the edge. Our final shot is of Eleanor, back in her quiet retirement, reading a newspaper about the successful summit. She receives a simple, unencrypted text message. It's from Amir. It just says, "Thank you." She smiles, deletes the message, and takes a sip of her tea. The world is safe, for now. This is the kind of story that reminds us that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism aren't fought on the battlefield, but in the quiet rooms where diplomacy, courage, and a shared sense of humanity refuse to let the world fall apart. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into a fictional crisis, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories like this. I'll see you next time.